Hey everyone, if this is your first talk with us, welcome to PMM Fest. And for those of you that have already been tuning in, welcome back. We hope you have been or will be enjoying what's going on here. And I just wanted to take this opportunity to say a big thank you to all our sponsors, partners, festival attendees and speakers. Without all of you lot, none of this could have gone ahead. If you're not already a member of our Slack community, do head over there and sign up. There's going to be lots of product marketing conversations, resources and chit chat going on in there both during the festival and long after. So that's all from me. Enjoy the talk.
Your customers are your best spokespeople, so you want to make sure your prospects hear what they have to say. After all, trusted endorsements can drive faster sales cycles and boost marketing conversions, which helps you unlock faster growth. But when it comes to going on the record, even your best customers can go silent. And who can blame them? Partnering on case studies is time-consuming, and it's painful to work through the legal approvals often required. Luckily, there's another way. With Tech Validate by SurveyMonkey, you can easily capture feedback from satisfied customers and transform it into powerful content, like verified case studies, testimonials, and reviews. Want charts that show ROI, cost savings, or competitive differentiation? You got it. With our platform, you'll quickly build an arsenal of highly targeted social proof points, segmented by industry, company size, or buyer persona. You'll get the tools to easily deploy your new customer evidence into top marketing channels and put it in front of your sales team to share with prospects. Plus, there's no need to wait for legal for approvals. With Tech Validate, your customers can opt to share their name or provide testimonials anonymously, with all customer evidence validated by a trusted third party. That's why hundreds of companies, big and small, use Tech Validate to get social proof at scale. Ready to see how it works? Watch our product tour today.
All right. Hey everyone. Thanks for joining. Good morning, good afternoon, depending on where you are. So today I'm going to talk about product engagement and how to drive revenue growth. Before diving into the content, a little bit of context about me. I'm Virginia. I'm currently running product marketing at a tech startup. I've always worked in like B2B SaaS subscription type of environments, which has a lot to do with the discussion today. And I've worn both more product strategy and also product marketing hats, so roles in both of those spaces. And I'm based in Madrid. And what my background has been both in bigger corporates with more mature products and also startups more in product market fit type of stage. So this will all apply to both environments. And a constant for me was, throughout my career has always been working with data and making sure that, it's the work is really hitting business impact. So let's get started talking about product engagement. So why are we even talking about product engagement, right? It's not the sexiest thing in product or in product marketing. And some companies, some pretty big companies actually don't care that much about product engagement. Something that I've seen both as a customer, also working at different places. So in the startup space, you hear a lot about growth hacking techniques, which, by the way, are great, but there's a lot of that acquisition focus, right? And scaling really fast and acquiring customers in the short run. Then both in startups and more established corporations, you also see that sometimes there is no clear path, clear strategy beyond the acquisition of customers. Or that you simply don't have the data to work with because you may be working in silos or just not have all of that available to work cross-functionally. And it can also be not to blame only marketing, but it can also be on the product or engineering side of the house where you have an agile team, they come together, ship something, but there's no stable team to then make sure that there is more work on something after it gets launched, after it gets shipped. And this is something that can happen again in both types of environments. And it's really, I think the quick growth mentality is really forgets some important components of what SaaS growth means. We'll go into those. But first, I wanted to quickly recreate, when we understand growth, and I'm using lots of quotation marks for that type of growth, a simply acquisition market. So the team builds the product, you have this big launch, you activate all of your marketing channels, all of the good stuff. You start to see people getting interested in the product and what you're launching. You probably move them through put them in some sort of marketing automation flow so that you can generate MQLs, which for some marketing teams can be a KPI, especially those that are more focused on the acquisition, right? So there are some groups that maybe have more of a demand gen first type of approach. So if they're happy with MQLs, then if you have business development representatives, sales development representatives, so your BDRs or SDRs may pick up those MQLs and try to qualify them in an enterprise, for example, software type of space. This is what you would see. If you're lucky enough, they can move those to the sales cycle and involve account executives. So then there's again another KPI for your BDRs, SDRs, the number of sales qualified leads that they generate. And then sales comes in, they close the deal, and that's it. That's the finish line. And very often you don't see marketers coming to pick that up again and see what happened after that launch, because the deal is closed. Sales stop caring because they already hit quota, and there's a cycle in there that really builds over time, which leads us to a problem. And that problem is that this type of growth focus doesn't actually deliver growth, because it forgets the most basic fundamental aspect of any subscription, any SaaS business, which is generating recurring revenue. So when you're operating like that, you're basically forgetting about launching and then moving on to the next thing. The focus is on new annual recurring revenue or monthly recurring revenue, depending on the cadence you measure and work. But it's forgetting a lot of very important items, which is, first of all, once you acquire those customers and you have that revenue, actually retaining that revenue. Then there's expansion ARR that not capitalizing on, so upselling, cross-selling, driving the stickiness of the product with that audience, and making sure that they spend more and more over time. There's also reactivation, so when you lose customers, then winning them back in some cases. It's also something that is not addressed when growth operates like this. And of course, this type of approach doesn't tackle the number one problem for any SaaS business, which is churn. And for some, especially for more mature products, if they are in a more mature space in the life cycle, churn is going to be enemy number one, and the priority is going to be to retain that revenue, which is what's going to sustain the business over time. And this brings us to an even bigger problem, which is when the focus is only on that immediate short-term acquisition, you're actually spending more money, because to acquire that new ARR, you actually need to spend money on cost of acquisition for customers, and then the cost of serving those customers. So if we look at the first chart, right, you're focusing on acquisitions, you're almost starting from scratch every time, because that's assuming that your total addressable market is an infinite resource and that you always have new leads to acquire, which especially in B2B, it won't be the case. I mean, not even in B2C, but you have even less room to play with in a B2B space. So you see that you have in orange, that's the customer lifetime value, right? So what you're bringing in terms of revenue. But then you have your cost. So you have your cost of acquisition, your cost to serve, and that remains the same over time. Because if you're not focusing on the retention, on the expansion, so it's almost like starting from scratch every time. Well, when we move on to a product engagement focus, we're going to define that a bit better in a couple of minutes. But if you think about when you address the whole spectrum of revenue growth, you're thinking about retention, you're thinking about expansion, and you're still thinking about new ARR. You see that you still have a cost of acquisition, you still have a cost to serve your customers, but there's almost a compounding effect that happens over time, and you see that the gap here between the gray and the orange, that's what you want to get to, right? That's the business value that gets generated over time, because you're driving more and more customer lifetime value through, yes, new customers, but also you're retaining, you're keeping your customers on your book, and you're also upselling and cross-selling to them and increasing that average, the lifetime value. On the cost side, what's quite interesting as well is that when you're driving a holistic experience, when you're thinking about product engagement broadly, you're also making your product better, you're improving your market fit, you're improving the overall ability to solve the customer pain point, the customer problem, which means that down the line, you're gonna spend less acquiring customers. You're gonna have very positive effects like brand equity. You're gonna grow your brand, and you're also gonna have word of mouth. So that's gonna bring lower cost of acquisition, and then the cost to serve over time tends to go down, simply because someone that has been with you for some time knows more of the product and will need less hand-holding, very likely, than if you were just bringing in completely new cohorts, every single year. So, it makes a lot of sense, right? If we think about it from a business standpoint, to focus on the other aspects of growth for subscription SaaS businesses. So what is product engagement? Because I'm sure all of us have this idea of what product engagement might be, right? It's usage, it's a stickiness, all of that great stuff that we want to accomplish with the product. But it actually goes beyond that. It's not that there are several tools out there that you can use to improve that day-to-day interaction, lots of tactics and frameworks, all of the product-led growth narrative that has been around for the past few years. But when you think about driving sustainable revenue growth, it really goes beyond that. So it's really about building an experience for your customers that is really centered around them, right? Then with that experience, that's when you're going to drive the adoption of your product. You're going to drive the frequent usage, and ultimately you're aiming a bit higher here. You're aiming for delight, for people to really love your product, to really love your brand and what you do, and stick with you for a longer period of time, resulting in longer term relationships. And then that's what's going to bring the business growth that we just talked about in the long run. So not only triple digit acquisition growth and scaling in the next quarter, but actually thinking what that means down the line for the business, and what type of sustainable growth is going to come from there. So from this definition, there are some things that we need to keep in mind. So first is, if we're going beyond the tactics and we're thinking that we're moving and saying, okay, it's about the overall experience and it's centered around the customer, there is no way that a single product marketer or a single product manager or even a single team is going to drive all of this. So this is the type of initiative that requires first your exec team to be, to buy in the idea and to believe in this and to see it as a priority, because otherwise there's no way around it. Then there is cross-functional alignment. It's something that needs to be driven for the entire company, because again, it's the experience. It's not only about people. It's about people coming back to the product, but there is more to that. Then the second point, which I personally think is quite critical, is that you can't do everything for the customer without the customer. So it's a two-way conversation. customer journey maps, thinking about product stages, different milestones that you want people to hit with your product to do what it's meant to do. Those are great tools, but you gotta listen back. It's not about saying to your customer, this, you have steps 1, 2, 3, 4 to get the most out of the product, and that's it. You actually have to listen back and act on that feedback that you're getting. So it's really a two-way conversation. There's a constant feedback loop that needs to get addressed. And then again, when we think about more holistically growth, on retention, on expansion, and all of that, it's a long-term game. It's not something that you're going to see all of the results next quarter. Of course, you can see short-term results, but this is about building business value over time. So that's an important shift in mindset for some types of businesses. So how does it impact the business? Because I'm talking a lot about once the customer is your customer, but actually driving, thinking about product engagement and building that type of experience can really help you a little bit before that. So if you think about software products where you have any SaaS product, you may have a free trial, you may have a free offering, some freemium experience. Having this experience in place can really help you to accelerate the conversion of those. There are two avenues that it really depends on how your sales organization operates, your type of product. But if you have a classic enterprise software, longer sales cycle where there's a lot of involvement from your account executives, and it just takes, it's more of a consultative type of sale. What you can do through product engagement is prospect readiness. So basically, when the prospect gets to speak with the sales representative of your company, they're gonna already have experienced some of that wow factor of your product, right? If it's a trial, if it's a freemium, whatever it might be. So that basically makes your sales organization more efficient, and you're increasing your chances to win. So that's one. And then second one is the direct conversion, which is not incompatible with the previous, but it's more when you have, if you have a product that has a self-service approach where you can just maybe pay with a credit card, or it's a very quick transactional sale. You can also see huge impact from having thinking about product engagement as the overall experience of the product, and letting your product do some of the talking, right? Because you're showing value from the beginning. If we think about the different marketing strategies, tactics, gated content is great. Having like ebooks, thought leadership, all of that stuff is great. But if you think about what's going to drive what has more power to drive a conversion, then your product is number one, and nothing is going to beat that. If you can give that wow effect from the beginning, it can be really, really powerful to drive those conversions to paying customer. Then once your customer is your customer, you're ready. It's the paying experience of your product. Can be, again, several software companies have enterprise level, and then have a self-service, more personal type of offering. It's really both. But what you're going to get out of having product engagement is the renewals. I think that's the most obvious one. But then there's that expansion revenue that we just talked about. So upselling, cross-selling, and that can mean different things. Upselling can be someone that starts with a lower price offering, and they then move to an enterprise tier. It can be solving more problems within the customer organization, so really exposing them to your product portfolio. It can be solving problems for more people in the client organization. So there are a number of options here, but it's really about increasing that stickiness with your product, and really increasing the average ticket value that you have with the customer. And last, definitely not least, is price increases, which is something that I think every product marketer has struggled with at some point. Sometimes when you're, if you're delivering more value, and pricing is something that you need to fine tune, and having and experience around your product and really making your customer part of that value conversation from the beginning can be really critical for the success if you need to increase your prices. So if we go back to that idea of the feedback loop, if if as a customer I am constantly seeing the value, there's that two-way conversation. It's easier. I'm not saying it's 100% easy to drive prices up, but actually it's a lot easier to start a conversation around the value that you're providing, because you're providing real value, other than if as a customer I only hear from a company when they want to increase my price in 15% upon renewal, then that's going to be a much harder sell. So how do we make this happen? There are several tactics, tools, and things out there. Excuse me. But step number one is looking at the data and working with the right metrics. This is extremely important, and that's why I think it's really step number one before you decide the specific tactics, is to connect your product engagement approach, what happens with your product and your customer, to your company overarching goals. So if we remember, this is a company-wide thing. So if you want to drive that customer experience, that product engagement, you need to think about what matters for the business. There's no silver bullet. I put here just an example to illustrate the point, but it's really doing that thinking and getting that alignment with your executive team, with the different cross-functional groups in your company. Excuse me. And making sure that the strategic goal is shared and that it's clear. Right? How many times do we hear salespeople caring about hitting their quota, how much they close, and then you hear some marketing people talking about things like MQLs, which there's clearly disconnect in there. So coming from a place of, this is the North Star metric, this is the one thing that we care about. So here, for example, I put, given the scenario we're in a global pandemic, so it makes sense that a lot of businesses want to retain their business and make sure that they retain that revenue. So let's say the key metric here is, okay, so we want to keep churn low. We want to keep churn below 2%. Then how do you get there? There's a translation layer that happens there. You need to think about, okay, what are the things that need to happen to make sure that I'm getting closer to that goal? So when you think about your product, something that may come to mind, of course, is frequent usage, depending on the type of problem that your product solves. It can be the adoption, right? If you're delivering certain features, then you want to make sure that they get adopted because they are important for a particular customer persona. Or it can be the stickiness within your client organization. So what I mentioned earlier about solving, problems for more people or more complex problems. So, for example, if your pricing takes into account the number of users, you probably want to make sure that all of them are using the product, because otherwise, when renewal comes up, you might see that if half of them are not using it, that's going to be a contraction of that customer contract, and therefore contraction of your revenue. So again, that's going to depend on what the thing that matters is for your company. But thinking about what indicators, if so, for example, if I have frequent usage, then I may think that I'm retaining customers. Definitely, if I have no usage at all, then I have a huge problem. If my goal is to avoid churn, then there's the second translation layer. So what those behaviors, what those predictive indicators are, and then what are the levers that you can influence, that you can measure, and that you can pivot on very quickly. For example, again, going back to that organization stickiness point, how many active users do you have in an organization? Let's say you sell to a bank that has 20 users with your product, so you want to make sure that the 20 of them are using the product, right? Same thing for if you're delivering a certain type of feature, so making sure that people are exposed, that they are using, that they are performing a set of key actions every time they log into your product, that they have a number of sessions per week, whatever it is that matters. Those are the things that are going to orient your tactics, really. But the exercise needs to come from the strategic goals and going into what the influencing factors are going to be, because otherwise you're just playing with the tactics, but not getting that alignment back to the core business. A great way to work on this is to use your past data. Right here, you can get as sophisticated or as simple as you'd like, but really thinking about, okay, what were the top cancellations, the most painful churned customers last year, for example, and see what happened in terms of usage. You will start to see some patterns. You will start to see things that matter more for a type of customer versus the other, and the same thing the other way around. So if you look at, okay, what were the main upsells last year, and look at the historic usage data, it can also give you some very interesting insights into what exactly is moving the needle for your particular product, for your particular company. Okay, so once we have the metrics, and that's really a key piece to work on and to monitor throughout. Then there's segmentation. I know there's a lot of work that goes into building customer personas, so I'm not gonna go specifically into the personas. This is something that you need to keep in mind, but there are some other factors that you can consider on top of that. First one is, I've been talking about lifetime value a lot. So your customers are not all equal. There's usually the 80-20 rule, right? That you see that you have a group of highly profitable customers that mean, and there are just a few of them, but they mean a lot for your business. Maybe they are 80% of your revenue. I mean, it doesn't need to be exactly 80-20, but that's usually the case. Then you have bigger pool of customers that are profitable, and it's not that you want to ditch your profitable customers and focus only on the high value ones, because at the end of the day, it's about also keeping a healthy balance, right? It's almost like an investment portfolio, that you don't want to invest everything in just one stock. So this is a bit the same, but with your customers. You want to have other options to potentially grow some of these profitable customers here in the middle and bring them over to being highly profitable if you lose one of the highly profitable. So there's a balance between not having all of your eggs in one basket, but it's also really worth keeping in mind that your highly profitable customers will be at some point in time a priority, and it's something that you need to keep in mind when thinking about product engagement, for feature prioritization, and for the different touch points in the experience. Then not only customer value, but there's and this is a very cliche thing that I know all product marketers have seen, right? You have the different adoption stages, and this is something that you probably also factored in your personas. If a specific type of customer tends to be an innovator, or if they tend to wait for a solution to be completely validated. But this is really helpful to keep in mind. What's the cohort that customer is in, and so that you're not pushing them to do actions they may not be ready to take at that point in time, right? So if someone is going to take a longer time to adopt your product, you also need to consider that and give them that time, and not just try to push the different steps. And then the last point here on segmentation is that you're going to have different types of users with your product. So there's the engagement funnel, if you think about it, when someone is new, and the goal always is to, of course, ideal state is to make them the power user that really advocate for your product, that really are an ambassador for your brand. But something to keep in mind here is that every customer is going to have a different journey with your product. So there's no one size fits all. And that's why thinking about the different touch points, thinking about the different actions is so important. Each one of them is going to have a different mix of features, of interactions with your companies. They're going to come with different preferences, with different biases, and they're going to have different skills, which if you're selling to to other companies, if you're in the B2B space, can be particularly relevant. Or if you have more technical audiences, that's something also to keep in mind, that that's going to shape how they interact with your product and how they extract value from your product, and also the type of feedback that they come to you back. So even though the goal is still to move them through that engagement funnel and get as many power users as you want, it's about empowering the customer and not necessarily forcing a journey that you mapped out with your product team and you think fits. Then, so after we looked into segmentation, another thing is cross-functional engagement. So again, this is not about just one team or just one individual, but we're simply thinking about your product in terms of features, but the different points in the journey are going to get affected. It's not only, oh, the customer logged in at one point and then they did X action, but there are several other things happening at the same time. They're touching several other points and other people in your company. So they may open a ticket with your support team. They may have a customer success manager that set up an introductory call. They're going to interact with the different resources and training that you put together to help them get started with the product. They're going to see what your company does in social media and the different campaigns happening, events you organize, and more things. So really what my point here is that your product journey, just the product journey, doesn't matter that much. It's about what the customer journey is, what the different points are, and how do you extract from the different touch points in that journey what the customer really wants, what's their feedback. That's when the voice of the customer comes in, right? So that two-way conversation, listening and acting on that feedback. Then analytics is really underpins everything. It's about, again, if you just consider this the third point here in the slide, they interacted with this feature, but you also need to consider what else happened. Oh, they actually opened 2 support tickets because they couldn't get around it, or they watched a product training for this. So you need to consider the whole picture and all of the different interactions that they're having, and bring that into your analysis. And of course, keeping the business performance in mind, because at the end of the day, those different touch points in the customer journey are going to drive customer value up or down. Where they're going to be more engaged, they're going to be closer to that objective that you're going after, and those predictive indicators that we talked about. So it's also something to keep in check constantly, because really when it comes to product engagement, it's not about setting it for once, but it's the continuous improvement, the continuous monitoring that needs to happen for all of it to be effective. So measuring interactions is really key. And of course, it goes beyond just the product. One point here is that there are lots of teams involved, and I know it can seem like this gigantic effort, but someone actually needs to take the lead on this, needs to own this. And I think product marketing as a function is in a really great position to do it, and to lead these efforts, and to coordinate these teams, and to bring people together, rallying around your North Star metric, and working on those other KPIs that come from it. So here are some examples. Of course, it may change depending on your on your organization, the stage of the company, the different teams, but some typical groups, of course, product, you need support from product, from engineering, to act on that feedback, to really embed all of that into the product. Customer success, if you have a customer success team that is managing the relationship with customers. Data analytics cannot be more critical. for this. Either it's if it's an entire team or if it's people with that function in your organization. They're really your best friends when it comes to product engagement. And then again, so other marketing teams, demand gen functions can be content if it's separate. Support teams are really on the front line with customers, and BDRs or SDRs and sales. So all of those touch points are going to be critical, and it's important to have that action coordinated so that you can also capture the analytics and make sure that you're seeing the holistic experience for your customer. So next step, really, the last is to set up. You need to have process and you need to have action. How do you act on this? I always like to bring things back to the product development process, because that's really how you really get to the inception of things, of products. So if you think about what happens, what stages happen. So you have product discovery, where you have different stakeholders, including product marketing, figuring out what to build. Then there's delivery and go-to-market. So delivery, actually the coding and delivering the product to go-to-market, setting up how you're going to get that to market, and then you launch the product. And product engagement is really the piece that brings this all together, that connects this process. So it's a great way to align is to embed this as part of your product development process. So what things here are just some examples of things that you can bring back to each stage by having this experience set up. But of course, there are more. But when it comes to discovery, all of that customer feedback, all of those analytics, that usage data, that's something that you can bring back to that discovery to help your team to figure out how to build the best solution. And it goes back to better product market fit, better serving your customer needs, because you're actively engaged. You're not only engaging the customer, but you're also engaged, you're as a company in that relationship, and you're bringing that back to how you build products and how you find solutions to problems. When it comes to delivery, again, it's validating different features. It's iterating fast. It's shipping the improvements that customers may be asking for. When it comes to go-to-market, I think the main gain here is that when you're actively engaged in the conversation and you're closing your feedback loops and you're thinking about the experience beyond just the product, you get to a much better place when it comes to solving your customers' problems and achieving product market fit. So that's something that's going to be reflected in your in your go-to-market strategy. And also, of course, in your launch approach. Once you get something new out there, if this is coming from customer feedback, if you're constantly in that conversation with your customers, then you're de-risking, and you can get a lot of also marketing gains in there in terms of getting people into your beta programs more easily and engaging them, different testimonials, success stories, and all of that great stuff that can really help and really drive the success for your launch. So so really having product engagement as that continuous improvement track can be a connector between different teams and different stages, and really the piece that is in the middle. Some things to keep in mind when bringing this to practice. The idea of, again, product engagement really being that one piece that brings your whole product development process together. But I've talked about product features, but actually your customer needs trump product feature. It's about focusing on the customer. Features are tools that you have to solve for those, but very often you see that product engagement starts trying to drive feature adoption rather than customer delight. And again, going back to your main objectives. Then another thing is that product engagement is not something that you can do for a very tiny area of your product. for a very specific feature set. It's something that goes across the entire product portfolio. It's something that goes across the entire company, really. So it needs to be treated holistically. From a very practical standpoint, on bringing it to the product development cycle, you can even see that if you think about the overall customer experience, it has its own backlog. It's in some companies, you may even see that you have a product marketer that is almost only working on that, and even someone from product management also focusing on that. Because if you start the conversation but you don't really act on what you're hearing from the customer, you're not doing much. You're not driving much value there. So one way of instrumenting this in your company is to think about it as almost as a product area with its own backlog, and so that you can also lobby to get the resources to act on that. Because at some point you're gonna need resources from UX or engineering to bring those things to life, and to keep that alignment, and to keep other teams excited about driving customer experience. And of course, this is a long-term play. So this is not something that not something that is short-term, that you're going to see all of the results tomorrow, but actually really over time. And I think this is it may sound obvious, but it's something to keep in mind when advocating for this internally, when building something like this, is to keep the expectations also real, and say, we have this specific goals, this behaviors, but this is something that we're going to see more gains from it over time, rather than immediate. And to wrap up the session, I'm really keen to jump into the questions. Just to recap, if we think about product engagement as the total experience that a customer has with your product, with your company, it's really the driver of business performance in SaaS or any subscription business, because you're addressing all of the components of revenue. You're driving customer value. You're bringing some of those acquisition and cost to serve costs down. So it's really a critical piece for success in the space. Then getting your metrics right. That's the way to connect the business goals to what your customers need, and that's when that's really when you start to see the delight happening, and when you start to see things work both for you as a company, and seeing your customers happy and getting value from your product. So it's worth it to take the time to see exactly what those metrics might be, and how to get them right. And again, it's really something that is unique to your product, to your business. Third one is that often with all of the tactics and frameworks and things for product engagement, sometimes people forget that it's about empowering your user and not trying to force a specific journey, because that journey is going to be personalized. That journey is going to be unique. So working together with other functions cross-functionally, and enabling and empowering your customers is what's going to make the difference. Thinking about the different touch points, it's not only logging into the product, but it's also how they felt when they spoke with support. It's how they felt when they went to your event, whatever it might be. But thinking about all of that holistically. And finally, the whole feedback loop piece is extremely important, because if you start the conversation but don't act on the feedback you're getting, it's just a sure way to lose trust, and to get people not to engage with your company anymore. Because okay, what am I giving feedback for if I'm not hearing back? And I'm not saying executing on everything straight away. There's prioritization, that separate backlog that I mentioned, but really making sure that it's a true two-way conversation, and not just trying to push features, and that you're driving that continuous improvement as well. So That's it for me. I'd love to go over questions. I see some already here in the chat. So let's see. Okay, so what kind of ratio of CLV to cost of acquisition is one that you could define as successful? What number would you consider good? I think it depends on. I mean, instead of giving a number, I think it depends on the type of business, and also what's the typical. Okay, let's put it this way. It depends how long do you expect that lifetime to be, right? Because if, for example, for products that are more on the cheaper subscriptions, let's say, and that you have a higher expected churn, then you probably can play with ratios that with a smaller margin, let's say. But if if your company is selling a product with thousands of dollars type of subscription, type of contract, you probably want to have a higher ratio and make that lifetime longer. I don't know if that makes sense, but it's really about so think about it as the investment. So how long are they going to stick with you? And then what's the ticket value? So the high, I think the lower the product price, so the subscription, you can afford to have to have a smaller margin there. But then if you have less customers, let's say, to work with and higher ticket value, then you probably want to have a higher return on that. Okay, then on feedback, have you found customers more or less ready to give feedback during the pandemic? Yes, mixed results as well. I mean, it depends on the business, on the industry where they are, right? I found that some customers that are on the okay side, that haven't been hit too hard by the pandemic, they are probably similar to other times. In some instances, it's just easier to get on a call with people because we're just all at home all day in Zoom calls and things like that. But for sectors that have been hit harder by the pandemic, definitely not the best time to get feedback, as there are other pressing priorities there. But yeah, but overall, I think, of course, circumstances are important, but when it comes to getting customer feedback, the history that you have with that customer matters a lot. Because if you already have that's why building relationships is also so important, and can help build resilience, if you will, of your business model and your client base, even in tough times, because it's just you already have that two-way conversation with them, so it's a lot easier to get them to talk, even if times are challenging. So yeah, but if you have customers in travel and areas that have been hit pretty hard, it's probably best to get feedback at some other point. Okay, so do you have a North Star metric you use internally? Yeah, I mean, as I mentioned, it's really some companies will call it North Star metrics, some others will not, but it's really thinking about okay, where the business is, what and what the focus is, what do you want to accomplish. I gave the example of retention mostly because a lot of companies haven't thought of retention too much, have lots of acquisition, but when you get hit with something like COVID, that you see new sales may stall, then lots of companies are now thinking, oh, I may actually need to do something to retain the customers that I already have, and and keep them at least, right? So it's a contention strategy, but it really depends on the financial health of your company as well. So and very importantly, the stage in the product life cycle. So as I mentioned, I've worked for businesses that were in a more mature stage. So for that type of business, the North Star metric is going to be retention. 95% of times it's going to be retention. But if you're in a company that has a less mature product that is in earlier stages, then you're going to see more balance also with acquisition. So it's, again, I'd love to give you just one answer, but I think it kind of defeats the purpose there. It needs to be really suited to where your business is and what your company does.
Thank you so much, Virginia. I really enjoyed it. Thank you to everyone who tuned in and asking the questions. Do you have any final remarks or ways people can get in touch, Virginia?
Sure. Yeah. So I've included my my LinkedIn. If you can think of any questions, or if you want to ask anything, to comment anything, I'm happy to chat. And yeah, I think it's really, if there's one idea that to take away from today's session, is really that product engagement goes beyond your product. It's experience, and it's essential for business performance in any SaaS or subscription businesses. So definitely something worth putting in the work.
For sure. Okay, thank you so much. Hope everyone enjoys the rest of their weekend. Okay, cheers, Virginia. Bye-bye.
Thanks.